Have you ever felt that pang in your chest? That certainty that something extraordinary was about to happen, even when reality seemed to say otherwise? Get ready, because the story I'm about to tell you today isn't just about an animal. It's about an invisible bond, a fight against the inevitable, and an act of compassion that defied nature itself. No one believed he'd survive. But life has its own plans, and the impossible rescue of this lonely lion will move you in ways you can't even imagine. Imagine a roar. Not a roar of hunt or fury, but a heavy echo that carried the scars of years under the scorching Serengeti sun. A sound that once proclaimed kingship, that made the savannah tremble, now sounded like a lament, almost a whisper lost in the warm air. What was unfolding in the dusty lands of Tanzania was, in fact, the cruelest phase of existence for any king of the jungle: old age. This lion, who once commanded respect with his majestic bearing and powerful presence, was now alone, his body weary and his soul marked by invisible battles. Who hasn't felt this way, at the mercy of time, struggling to hold on to a crown that was once so easy to wear? This king of the savannah faced his own solitude, a heavy burden that led him down paths from which there seemed to be no return. But would the final destiny of a giant like him merely be oblivion? Little did he know that the universe had other plans, and that the true test of his dignity was yet to come. And believe me, this turning point began in a past we could never have foreseen. He was a ghost of his former self now, but it wasn't always like this, you know? There was a time when the old lion, whom we'll affectionately call Kiddo, was the very definition of power. His mane, now disheveled, was once a golden and black cloak, denoting his vitality. Can you imagine the strong scent of wet earth after a rain, Kiddo's roar, echoing through the valleys and making bones vibrate miles away? That's how it was. Kiddo wasn't just the leader of a pride. He was the soul of that group, the protector, the hunter who ensured everyone's survival. His presence was so magnetic that even the acacia trees seemed to bow when he passed. A fascinating fact about lions: their roar can be heard up to 5 miles, 8 kilometers away. It's a powerful communication tool, used to mark territory and intimidate rivals. For Kiddo, it was also a hymn of strength. He reigned supreme, with unshakable dignity, protecting his family from cunning hyenas and other predators who dared to approach. It was the law of the jungle in its purest, most brutal form. But for Kiddo, it was his life, his purpose. Who among us doesn't seek that same meaning in our own lives? That sense of belonging and protection. The truth is, as wild as they may seem, the family bonds among lions are incredibly strong, and Kiddo was the pillar of it all. But like every story of glory, is also held a twist in time. Feel the weight of the crown. Even if invisible, it turns out that time is a relentless master. And for Kiddo, the crown that was once light began to feel heavy. He felt old age in every bone, in every muscle that no longer responded with the same agility. Hunts became more difficult, and the fresh scent of prey, once so stimulating, now seemed distant. Have you ever felt the frustration of not being able to do something that was once so easy? That's exactly how it must have been for Kiddo. He, the king, saw younger, more vigorous lions taking his place, with the strength of youth in their roars. And the most painful part: the law of the jungle doesn't forgive weakness. It was then that Kiddo made the hardest decision of his life: to leave the pride. It wasn't an expulsion. It was a painful choice, a final act of dignity so as not to be a burden. He departed, leaving behind the familiar sound of the pride's evening chatter, seeking the solitude of the Serengeti Mountains. It's ironic, isn't it? An animal as social as a lion, who lives and hunts in groups, finding his end in solitary exile. Did you know that male lions living alone, outside a pride, have a much shorter life expectancy? Their life is based on the strength of the collective. Keto knew this, but his king's mind wouldn't allow his weakness to compromise those he loved. A lesson for all of us. Sometimes the greatest act of love is knowing when to step away. No matter how painful. But this deep solitude would lead Keto down dangerous, unimaginable paths, even for a king. A sigh, the pain of letting go, even when necessary. In the mountains, Keto found a new routine, harsh and desolate. The majestic lion who once easily brought down buffalo now settled for smaller prey. A cunning hare, a distracted bird. With each hunt, the strong scent of the prey's fear mingled with the smell of blood and sweat, reminding Keto of his fragile condition. His old wounds ached with the night's cold, and every step was a testament to his determination. He had found shelter in a dark, damp cave, a simple refuge that barely protected him from the icy winds blowing from above. This phase of Keto's life shows us something profound: resilience. Even in the face of everything, he didn't give up. Did you know that lions can go days without food, but water is essential for them? Keto needed every ounce of energy, and every small victory in hunting was vital for his survival. It's a reminder for us. No matter how great you once were, life always challenges us to adapt and fight for the basics. Think of that moment when you had to reinvent yourself, find a new way to deal with a problem that seemed impossible. Keto was there in this daily battle, showing that dignity isn't just about strength, but about persistence. But the mountains, though they gave him refuge, also held dangers far greater than hunger and cold. And it was precisely during one of these desperate hunts that the unthinkable happened. Inhale deeply, the power of will in the darkest moments. A day that began like so many others. With Keto feeling the sun's warmth on his already fading coat, he spotted a deer. A larger prey, a calculated risk, but hunger spoke louder than prudence. The scent of dry earth, mixed with that of the startled deer, showed the way. He set the ambush, his old body moving with a cunning that still persisted. Have you ever felt compelled to try something risky, even knowing the dangers? Keto was at that crossroads. However, as he pursued the deer along a rocky, treacherous trail, fate caught up to him. A cliff, a loose stone. In the blink of an eye, the ground gave way beneath his paws. The deafening sound of the fall, mixed with his own grunt of pain, echoed through the mountains. Keto plummeted, tumbling for a few meters before. By a stroke of luck or an inscrutable destiny, he became suspended. His hind paws struggled desperately. In the air, finding no footing, while his front paws clung to a rocky ledge. The sharp smell of fear and adrenaline filled the air. Did you know that felines, including lions, have a righting reflex that helps them land on their feet? But in this case, the height and unpredictable surface negated that ability. Keto was there, trapped in an extremely perilous position, and his survival depended on something that seemed unattainable. He, the king, was on the edge of the abyss, and nature, cruel and indifferent, seemed to offer no help. Who could imagine what would happen next? The silence then became heavy, almost an omen. Visualize the despair of the fall, time standing still. Suspended between life and death, Keto let out groans of pain that spread through the vast solitude of the mountains. The cold wind buffeted his fur, and the metallic smell of his own blood mingled with that of the cold rock. In these remote lands, a park ranger named Kemo, a man with a big heart and keen ears, was on his rounds. Do you believe in signs? For Kemo, it seemed like one. He heard a strange sound, a lament that wasn't from a hunting animal, nor a distant howl. It was something different, laden with agony. Kemo, guided by a strong intuition, you know, that feeling that something is calling you, even when there's no apparent reason, followed the sound. He approached cautiously, feeling the sandy ground beneath his boots, until his eyes caught sight of the unbelievable scene. A lion, a king of the jungle, hanging from a cliff, fighting not to fall into the abyss. Kamal's heart pounded. He knew how dangerous and cornered Lion was, injured and terrified. After all, lions can react with extreme aggression when they feel threatened, even if they're in trouble. But instead of fear, Kamal felt a pang of compassion so intense that it completely overwhelmed him. He saw the king's dignity, even in the most vulnerable situation. Who among us wouldn't wish to have the courage to help a being in such despair? That moment, with the late afternoon sun painting the sky in orange hues, seemed frozen in time, about to decide Keto's fate and forge an improbable connection. What Kamal would do next would defy everything expected. Feel the turning point. The spark of hope emerges from the darkness. With one final monumental effort, Kamal succeeded. Keto, the lion, was pulled to the safety of the cliff's edge. He collapsed onto the ground, exhausted, feeling the firm earth beneath his body. The silence that followed was not of danger, but of pure, absolute relief. Kamal, panting, stepped back, awaiting any aggressive reaction from the lion. But what happened next surprised both of them, and anyone who might have witnessed the scene. Keto, the king of the jungle, the wild animal by nature, turned his head and looked at Kamal. His eyes, which once gleamed with pain and despair, now held an indescribable depth. And then, in a gesture that transcended the barrier of species, Keto lowered his head, as if bowing a nod. Have you ever seen an animal express gratitude so clearly? It's the kind of moment that makes you believe the connection between living beings goes far beyond what we can comprehend. Some might say it was just exhaustion, but Kamal felt something deeper. A recognition, a compassion returned. Who wouldn't be moved by this display of dignity and mutual respect? It's as if the universe had orchestrated that encounter to show that even in the wildest of creatures, there is a heart capable of understanding help and goodwill. That instant, marked by the soft sound of the wind through the rocks and the heavy breathing of both, sealed a bond that Kamal would never forget. But the reunion was only part of the story. Breathe in the strength of human courage. Feel it in your heart, the recognition between souls, the moment of connection hung in the air, almost palpable, before Kamal realized he couldn't stay there forever. The scent of dry grass and dust mingled with the silence that suddenly seemed to weigh heavily. With a final nod and a soft murmur of farewell, the park ranger slowly stood up and began to walk away. Keto, the lion, remained lying for a while, his yellow eyes fixed on Kamal's figure shrinking in the distance. There were no roars, no sudden movements, just a gaze from one who understands that sometimes the deepest encounters are the briefest. As he walked back, feeling the late afternoon sun warm his back, Kamal couldn't stop thinking. The image of the hanging lion, and then its bowed head in gratitude, etched itself into his mind. He reflected on the cruelty of time, on how old age can steal strength even from the most powerful, stripping them of their dignity and imposing solitude. But he also thought about Keto's incredible resilience, the survival he pursued until the very last second. Which of us has never stopped to reflect on the passage of time and the marks it leaves on us? It's a universal lesson, isn't it? Life is a relentless cycle, and for everyone, humans or animals, there is a moment of glory and a moment of decline. However, what Kamal had witnessed was more than the law of nature. It was compassion in its purest form, showing that even in the worst scenarios, help can come from where it's least expected. This reflection would lead him to an even deeper understanding. Close your eyes, the transience and beauty of life. Story of Keto and Kamal wasn't just an isolated incident in the vast lands of the Serengeti. It was, in fact, a miraculous encounter, one of those coincidences that seem to be orchestrated by something greater. Have you ever wondered if certain people or events appear in our lives exactly when we need them most? It seemed like a sign from the universe, proof that even in the deepest solitude and in the face of a fatal accident, help can arrive. The scent of freedom mingled with that of relief, painting a new atmosphere in the air. Lions are creatures of instinct, and humans are driven by reason. But on that cliff, man and wild animals supported each other amidst adversity in a way that defied logic. It was a connection that transcended biology, the hierarchy of the food chain, and imminent danger. Did you know there are many unproven, but moving, accounts of wild animals that seem to thank or recognize acts of kindness? This episode with Quito reinforces that powerful idea of universal compassion. It wasn't just a rescue. It was a testament to the dignity that resides in all creatures and to the human capacity to lend a hand, even when fear would be the most natural reaction. This story teaches us that no matter how challenging our survival may be, an act of kindness can change everything forever. And the mark left by that day went far beyond the footprints in the dirt. ... Let yourself be carried away. The magic of encounters that change everything. That day in the Serengeti Mountains, with the unmistakable scent of dust and sun-warmed rock, wasn't just another day in the life of a park ranger or a lion. It was a turning point. Camel's act of compassion, his decision to extend a hand to a king in solitude and on the brink of death, was etched not only in his memory, but also in the landscape itself. The steep cliffs, silent witnesses to the old age, and the accident that almost claimed a life, now held the memory of an impossible rescue, of help that came from where it was least expected. The story of Quito and Camo is a powerful reminder that true dignity lies not only in how strong you are, but in how you rise after a fall and in how others can lift you up. It's about survival in its rawest form, but also about the beauty of the connection that can flourish even between such different worlds. Have you ever thought about how a small gesture of kindness can have a giant impact on someone's life? That's the lesson Camo will carry with him forever. That lion, whom he would never see again, taught him something about the strength of spirit and the fragility of existence, about the cycle of life and the hope that renews itself. This chronicle, my friends, is an invitation to look beyond appearances, to feel empathy for the beings around us, whether human or animal. Wildlife has profound lessons to teach us about resilience, acceptance, and, above all, about the power of unconditional compassion. And you, have you ever had an animal that changed your life or an unexpected encounter that made you believe in miracles? Tell us in the comments. Your experience can inspire many other people. If this story warmed your heart and made you reflect, don't stop here. The next video suggested by YouTube will move you even more and show you other incredible stories of animals that overcame the impossible. Don't miss it. Like, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our chronicles, and share with your friends to spread this message of hope. Thank you for following along, and until the next journey.